All right, we did it.
All right, we're in the building.
Hey, how are you, man? How's it going?
Very well. How are you?
Very good. Super excited to have you. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Um, I met you. I don't know if you. I'm sure you don't recall that, but it was in Le Web 2000. I think it was 17, 18. That was the first time I see you, and I was like, wow, look at the energy this guy have, and the ideas that are not conventional, not textbook. It's just so talks to the brain and the heart, and I love that. And ever since then, I've been a big fan and a follower.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a lot of questions the audience want to hear, and we want to pump them up. However, I just want to start with you. How was your beginning? How was like the start? Because everybody sees Gary Vee today, and it's like, wow, I want to be like him. But what they probably don't know is like the hardship that you went through. You started in an immigrant and a wine shop, and then you've done your first e-commerce. So you want to give us a little bit of a background in there, just so people would understand what we're talking about here.
I was born in the former Soviet Union, so being an entrepreneur, to be born in a communist country is very ironic. And, got very fortunate that we were able to leave the Soviet Union. Small group of individuals were able to leave in the late 70s. We were purely lucky with having family here and political asylum, and was able to come here. Unfortunately for my family, the late 70s in the US were a very challenging time. The economy was extremely bad. New York City was dangerous. And it was, it was a grind. Lived in a studio apartment with grandparents and with my grandmother and my great grandparents, and it was definitely a challenge. My dad worked every minute that I can recall. I really didn't have much of a relationship with him for the first 14 years of my life because he was trying to establish the American dream for us. To your point, I was a very street kid, non-conventional. I was non-conventional, pure entrepreneur, not textbook, and I had a mother that was unbelievably kind, and had incredible emotional intelligence. And so I almost had this weird juxtaposition of like being street and dirt and a grinder, but had this framework of respect and kindness and gentleness. And
interesting combination.
It created a unique variable. I was very good at selling things. I eventually got dragged into my family's business. My dad had a liquor store, merchant. Fell in love with the idea of people collecting wine, premium wine. Became deeply educated in that, all along the way being a terrible student. No real university would have any interest in Gary Vee, 1994. Eventually came into my dad's business, realized the internet was going to be a big deal, and started an e-commerce wine business in 1997, which went on to become one of the biggest companies in America in the wine business. That was my father's business. I obviously took it from a $3 to a $65 million business. But, but when I was 32, 33, I kind of realized I had to go on my own because I wasn't getting paid a whole lot and I had big ambitions. And I felt like I checked the box and really brought value to my father and mother.
Beautiful.
And was ready. My brother's 11 years younger than me. He graduated school and we started Vayner, which I still run today, which is an advertising agency, marketing agency, 1,000 people, Singapore, London, New York, LA.
Big brands as well to work with.
Yep, GE
brands.
And Budweiser and Chase and biggest brands in the world. And that's going well. And then along the way, the two other things I kind of did during that time was I became an early investor in companies. That's why I was at Le Web so early on as an early investor in Facebook and Twitter, and an early user of YouTube. So at the time, Loic was, I was one of the most innovative people on YouTube when it first came out in the first year.
Exactly.
I was being written about in TechCrunch, and I was very much part of that Web 2.0 movement, friends with Kevin Rose and Mark Zuckerberg and Saka, and a very interesting time for me, learned a lot. And then I became a prolific content creator around my ideas and wrote 5 New York Times best-selling books, became one of the more successful public speakers in the industry, and produce an ungodly amount of free content with really the hope of, legacy, to be frank, my friend. I'm very, I'm very busy right now. There's a lot going on with COVID, but when Maha said, hey, do you want to do this live? I said, absolutely. I do recall meeting and I'm aware of you. And two, you have an incredible audience in Saudi, and I've, you know, my Snapchat 3 years ago really penetrated the incredible people of Saudi. But in general, I'm always interested in audiences because I believe in my ideas. I believe they come from a good place, and I believe that they bring a lot of value. And I'm proud that I'm not interested in funneling these people into a paying product. I'm doing it for my legacy, and I think a lot of people benefit from it. And it's been a good run, and I'm 44, and I feel the next 44 years of my life, I'm going to be able to do a lot of incredible things that will be very selfish and very selfless, and that is my framework.
Wow, it's impressive. I mean, and to be honest, everybody, you know, like I talked to was so excited. So you've left a good impression and a legacy. Definitely, you're still young. You still have, you know, like I heard in one of your talks, you're saying 44 is still, you know, you're not old yet. And it's a baby, and that's one of the things we tend to live our life. You know, like we're young, we grow, we reach a point, we get married, and you know, start a business or start working, and that's it. What's interesting, you know, what you said is still an opportunity to try, and this is something, you know. What would you tell people who feel like, you know, I'm stuck wherever I am? You know, this is my background, or this is my degree, or my parents want me, and it's a pity that I see that, and I see a lot of them. What would you tell them? How would you convince somebody like this who thinks, you know, it's game over, or he thinks like, you know, although they have lots of ideas, but thinking, you know, it's not for me, I'm old, or it's game over? What would you tell them? I
would tell them that if they understand basic math, that they can become much happier. If you're 36, it is very likely that you will be living for another 50 years, which means that you are not even at halftime. And so it's very, you know, it's very funny. I understand societal norms. And by the way, you know, I'm from the former Soviet Union. So, you know, I'm an immigrant. I understand other parts of the world. I've spent a ton of time in the Middle East. I interact with hundreds of thousands of people a month. I know what parents' pressures look like to get a degree, to get married. I mean, to have a baby. I mean, I think about all these incredible female entrepreneurs I know that are getting pressured by their mothers to, when are you gonna have a baby? You know, like as if like what they're doing isn't important. It's crazy.
It's true. It's
true. So from my perspective, I kind of make them feel silly. If somebody's really pushing against me and they're really in a dwell and they're really sad and they're like, you're wrong, Gary. I really kind of almost insult them with basic math. You know, I said, look, you're 49. You're probably got 36 more years conservatively. That's the average in your country's age. There you go. But with modern medicine, the number keeps going up.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing? Like, why are we giving up? And so, and when I hear it from somebody who's 22 or 25, or the worst number, 28 and 29, my friend, 28 and 29 drive me crazy because a lot of people fear that 30. They fear that 30. And I mean, you and I are probably laughing right now. We would rip off our arms to be 29.
Absolutely, of course. Of course. And that's interesting what you just said, because a lot of people, you know, think they will get happy later on. So what they're doing, they're trying to work hard, they're trying to hustle, they're trying to grind to be happy later on. And guess what? That might not happen, because if he's working or she's working something they don't love, so they've wasted now and later. And I love the part that you always said, you know, what's really important is to be happy. I think that, so if you're working at a job and you're happy with it, fine. You don't have to. It's not like because he did it or she did it, I have to follow suit. But it's just, what's important is to be happy. And I think this is something you always talk about, you know, the 3 principles of you know, like of life. So can you tell us more about it? You know, happiness is definitely one, but what else is important in life for these young people?
I think happiness and fulfillment and joy, and whatever word one wants to use. Sometimes when I talk, I see people like, Gary, it's not happiness, it's fulfillment. I'm like, my friend, we're talking about the same thing.
Same thing.
You know, it's funny. The way I think about that is I wish people spent more time with elders, not their grandparents, outside non-family elders.
Interesting.
Because I think I did a lot of that weirdly naturally as a kid, and I've never really realized why. And I've come to realize whether I'm an old soul, whether it was serendipity of where I was growing up, but it impeached an enormous amount of wisdom. Because what I extracted, and I'm talking about when I was 7, 9, 11 years old, a child, But I remember many of those conversations, and I was always attracted to elderly. And I was very, very close with my great-grandfather for the year that when we came to America before he passed, unfortunately. We were very close. We spent every day together. And I remember him fondly, even though I was only 4. And he was a very kind and wise man. And I feel like I extracted a lot of his energy in a lot of way. I believe that people are confused. I believe that they don't understand. I believe that they don't realize that there are unlimited millions of millionaires that are miserable.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Three powerful M's in a row. There are millions of millionaires
that are miserable.
And I think that if people understood that truth, because they don't believe it, because when they don't have money, they're like, that's okay, I'll take it. But what they don't realize is they're not unhappy because they're not as wealthy. They're unhappy because they're insecure. They're unhappy because they don't have self-love. They're unhappy because their relationship with their loved ones isn't good. They're unhappy because they need outside validation. So they aspire for Mercedes Benzes and Gucci belts and Rolex watches to close the gap of the unhappiness in their heart. They have complicated things when things are so simple. And so happiness to me over everything. I'm willing to make that decision at any time.
I agree. And I think that's if people have that in their mind, and I love what you said, whether it's joy, whether it's fulfillment, whether it's happiness, that's what they should see. So if doing their own business would help them reach there, fine. If making more money, although on the point of money, and sometimes you keep on buying because you think that's it, the happiness of buying lasts this much. But
it's like a drug. It's like a drug. This people buy things the same way that alcoholics drink alcohol or drug addicted individuals use. They're using it as an escapism mechanism.
Exactly.
And they're creating a new reality. Some people need to alter their brain to create a new reality. Others need to buy things to pose as if they're happy. The amount of people on Instagram right now that are making pretend they're happy versus actually being happy is extraordinarily high, which then leads to the insecure being even more insecure because everyone is creating these fake environments. It's led to a lot of anxiety. We as a society decide we want to blame the platforms. Oh, Facebook's bad, Instagram's bad. The reality is it's not the platform's fault. The platforms are empty. We are filling the pipes. And I think too many people are filling the pipes with artificial content, artificial, flawed information. And and instead of judging that and spending my time on that, I'm spending my time on trying to speak about historic truth in contemporary frameworks and hopefully impact a person at a time to change their perspective. Listen,
beautiful.
For the 1,500 people that are on this right now, the fact that we're alive, the fact that look at the technology advances. Look where I am. Look where you are. We're together live right now for free. True. I don't think people understand how fortunate we are, even during a pandemic, even during these things. And so I just wish people took advantage and looked at the glass half full instead of the glass half empty.
Exactly. And one of the issues that people now are addicted to the likes, even on social media. So what they're doing is just posting to get a like, and they get obsessed by it, versus it's a great tool if they, and I didn't start posting videos early on, although I own several companies who work in media and digital. However, I was reluctant to doing that because I was always worried, what would people say? What if I'm not good enough? I'm not like one of these, influences that I have. But then when I started posting, I felt so fulfilled. I felt good. It's not about the likes. And I love what you said, if you look for the likes, then you'll be affected by the dislikes. However, if you ignore both, then you'll just do because you love doing it. And when I started doing that, it just became beautiful because I'm expressing myself, I'm sharing whatever I have, and I'm happy that people are benefiting from it. So
and there's unknown truths, right? So for example, right now, DJ Ango Stewart said, Gary, you need some sleep. The truth is, I have Eastern Jewish European roots, and we get bags under our eyes, and I have no skincare routine, and my parents both went gray in their 30s, so that's why I look like this. Meanwhile, the truth is, for the last 7 months, because of COVID, I've never slept more in my life. I'm sleeping 10 hours a day.
Oh,
you know,
yeah?
so like that people jump to conclusions, to observations with no context, with no understanding, with no reality. So for me, I'm not worried about judgment because I know that DJ said that in there coming from a nice place. He cares. I don't think he's trying to hurt my feelings, but I also know that nobody knows the truth and they're making judgments based on hot takes or observation, or by the way, bad lighting. You know, so like to me, I spend my time not jumping to conclusions. I spend my time focusing on what's the actual truths. And I use my gift of being a good communicator to spread that aggressively far and wide. And I'm going to be very happy when I'm 90 years old with the body of work.
Yeah, yeah. And if I may add, I think the other point that always creates frustration or at least anxieties is expectations. So one of the things I've done here is like, I have no expectation. You know, whether it gets likes, whether I get the numbers, I'm really not interested. I'm enjoying the journey. So and the journey for me is, you know, to post a video. And at the beginning, I was very systematic. I wanted every other day. But then I thought, I mean, why am I doing that? I'm just putting extra pressure on myself. So the thinking today is like, whenever I get inspired, I go out and I speak and I do a video and I post it. If I'm not, fine, there's no expectation. And I think the part of expectation, we tend to be harsh on ourselves and with those expectations. So instead of helping us feel better, we sort of put more pressure on ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. One of my most important variables is my greatest gift is my inability to overjudge myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have real self.
Interesting.
If today I want to do it, if today I don't, good. Like I am very comfortable in my skin. I have no short-term monetary or numerical goals. I live in my process. My process is predicated on happiness. I talk about what I want, you know, and that's what I do.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and that's what makes you, you know, and hence comes to my next question is like, you know, you're a brand. When I started my agency, people were criticizing like, you should not overshadow the agency. You know, it's the brand, you're not the brand. And to be honest, I believe that. And for a while I tried to push, you know, the brand of the company. However, I see it's the other way around. You are the brand. And you know, like you've got the Vayner Media and you've got, you know, several other businesses and books and whatever. But how do you build your own brand? I mean, what does it mean to build a brand? How do you build a brand? How do you become a brand? I mean, people think of brands as products, as companies, as merchants, you know, not as people. While you are a brand with the words you say, the way you dress, I mean, you see it and you know, this is Gary Vee. So how do we do that? How do we become a brand?
I think it's consistency of what you put out. And honestly, when we use the word brand with people, it's just the current slang term we use for reputation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, we've manifested it in the conversation to this term brand. And a lot of people, as you know this, they look down at the term personal brand. It comes across maybe lowbrow. You know, to me, it just means reputation. You know, how do you build a reputation? Through action. You know, through action, through consistency, through
being authentic, being yourself. You know?
Yeah, it's 100%. Like, and you know this because you were around when I kind of emerged. You know, there was a lot of people like, cursing is not allowed. You shouldn't do that. Or, you know, I never wore suits, or all these things that are now normal today. Mm-hmm. I was criticized and told from a kind place, hey, this is not going to work. You're not going to succeed in the big business world by cursing or being aggressive or saying bad things about platforms. And I said, look, I don't know any different. I'm okay with that. If I leave money on the table, if I leave success on the table, I'm good with that because I'm not a good enough actor. I can only be me. I'm only comfortable in me. I don't want to think about what did I say last time. Exactly. And I also desperately understood 10 years ago that everything was going to be filmed and we were all going to live on the record. And I wanted to be historically correct more than I wanted to be conforming for some short-term monetary gains. True.
And you've attracted the attention. I mean, you speak the language today. I mean, you go on any street. I mean, it's just, that's the language. Between every fuck, there's another fuck, you know? So it's again, people tend to do frameworks and I think the frameworks is what keep us in sort of in the comfort zone. However, most of those who made it, yourself included, definitely, and all the, the other big entrepreneurs, when I decided to leave Procter & Gamble and start my own agency, everybody was, are you crazy? You leave P&G and you do an independent agency to compete with all the multinationals. But I think it's leaving that comfort zone is what made it. So is leaving the comfort zone the only way to make it? I mean, do you have to be different?
No,
Do you have to?
no,
I mean,
no.
Can you be in your comfort zone? Because I think you have to. I mean, all those who made it really went against the tide, really went against the norms. And a lot of people today want to stay in their comfort zone. It's what I know. It's what I like. Maybe they're happy. I'm not judging your happiness. But if you want to make it big, I think, that you got to go against the norm, because that's where nobody went, sort of. If
you're talking about building a business for yourself, for me, if you want, like, making it big comes in all shapes and sizes. For me, my mother made it big. My mother lost her mother at 5. And her greatest goal was to be a great mother. And she did it. And she did it in a real way, and she made it big. And so for me, that's not going to get the attention of millions of people, but I definitely know it to be true. She fulfilled her big in the same way that I want to be so big that I have a different big. I want to make such an impact on the world through the lens of entrepreneurship that there's literal statues, and I want my birthday to be a national holiday. Like, I'm going for it all. I want all.
I love that.
All 8 billion people on Earth to know who I am and be, aware of me and take what is good for them, or leave and not be interested. That's my big. Very different than my mom, but I know her so intimately well. So yes, I think the way you're asking the question is very clear. If you want to financially and fulfillment-wise go big, there's 2 ways. One way, you so understand the Procter & Gamble systems of the world that you ascend to being the CEO. You understand it cold, you like it, it's fun for you, you were a good student, you're good at university, you can go. The other way is more me, which is that's visceral. I would die in that environment. And you play outside of it. And obviously you build your own systems. There's a lot of people I have 1,000 employees. They will play in the Vayner system. Gary Vaynerchuk, would get fired at VaynerMedia, but I'm capable of being the CEO.
True. And that's amazing. I guess this is one of, that's what drives entrepreneurs, when they have something they want to do, they have a vision and they can't fulfill it anywhere but, doing it themselves. And I think this is wonderful. I know we have limited time, so one of the questions I have, and to be honest, a lot of people say it's like, based where you're at is where opportunities. So for instance, in the US, land of opportunities, there are huge opportunities. Arab world might not be as big. So a lot of people would blame it on, if I was like Gary in the US, or if I was like you in Saudi, or if I was like, I don't know who, somewhere. Do you think this plays a role? I mean, realistically speaking, is a place makes a difference, or it's just an excuse people say for not doing what they're capable of?
Both. I think a place can and does make a difference. Rules are different. It's harder to be a purebred entrepreneur in Russia because Putin doesn't allow it the same way that America allows it or Dubai allows it. Every place is different. I do think the internet is an incredible equalizer and has changed the game. And I also think that if you don't like it, luckily, in most parts of the world, you're able to leave and able to go to the place where you want to go. So, I believe that the world is 100% how you see it. And beautiful. I agree with the way you're asking the question that people are creating excuses for non-action. There's a lot of people that like to come up with excuses to why not. And I always remind them, if anybody that looks like you made it, well, then you've got a problem. Okay. If you're in a small town in Kuwait, and you're using that as an excuse, if anybody in that town has ever gone to university in the UK, went on to become, I talk to a lot of people in very humble beginnings in the US, ghettos and negative places, and there are people that have come out of those situations and have won, or have been successful financially or professionally or happiness. So I think, I do think place is a factor. But I think my my mom and dad were born in the least likely place to build something for yourself, and they left and started over and ate shit. And so I do think people can do.
I like that. And I like to think of it as a soil and a seed. So it takes the soil and the seed to have the best plant. However, you can, if it's a good seed in a not so good soil, it might grow, but not as big as when you have. So I always like to think of this. So if you're a good seed, find the good soil, then that combination is the magic combination.
I think it comes down very, 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 very simply to accountability. The second you're not willing to be accountable 100% for everything in your life, the second you're not willing to blame yourself for everything that is going wrong, is the second incredibly vulnerable. And so for me, I don't like when I do bad things. I don't like when I do things that don't work, but I'm not confused and I'm not looking around to decide I'm going to blame my parents. I'm going to blame my government. I'm going to blame, this circumstance. I think my accountability lens is my biggest variable.
Yeah. Beautiful. My last question would be, how do you keep on going? I mean, one of the things I face, and this is also coming from me, I get excited and go, and for a while, but then you reach, sometimes it's like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and you start getting doubts or thoughts. How do you keep on going every day? Especially like you're always live, you're always on conferences, you're writing. I mean, if it's somebody like me who can disappear for a couple of days and then come back, I would, that's the excuse for me.
What's funny?
So to build my energy.
I disappear too. I just, if you look at my content from 2011 to 2014, there's very little of it because I was building Vayner, and then that gave me the dollars to be able to build a team that makes me more omnipresent. But I'm not always. I mean, most of my content right now on my Instagram, for example, is pre-recorded from 2017, 2018, things of that nature. I'm on when I'm on. I don't judge myself when I feel like I want to be off. And then I'm on often because I'm grateful. Gratitude is my fuel. I'm grateful that I even have a chance to be on. And I think once you become grateful for even the ability to maybe be on, everything changes.
Yeah, I think that's good because a lot of people would either doubting themselves or they start listening to the people around them. And sometimes, some people are, when you get the criticism, it's one or two, just makes you, okay, I doubt, am I really doing it? And that's so bad.
I apologize. Yeah. I need to run to this client meeting, but my number one thing is the inability to hear anybody else.
Yeah.
Pro and con, my friend. By not hearing everybody saying I'm a genius, I'm able to stay humble. By not hearing that I suck, I'm able to stay self-loving. And in those two variables, the contradiction of deep confidence and self-love and humility at all costs, I believe, is a bridge of incredible strength.
It is just trusting yourself, believing in yourself, and keep going. Gary, thanks a lot. I know you're busy. You got to go. Thanks for giving us this half an hour. It was really a pleasure. Hope to see you soon and hope to see you in Saudi. So
it's 100%. Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
If you want to learn how to market on social media like Gary Vee, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.